Yes, my people, welcome in here to a CBS presentation of Numbers Don't Lie, powered by Sofascore. And we've been so close to Christmas, we thought we'd give you the gift that keeps on giving, that is Real Madrid. And the question marks around this man, one of the greatest minds in football, in Xabi Alonso, but is his time running out? And if I'm going to have this debate, you know I'm going to have it with my dog, my homeboy, my co-D. I like that, you can't see me. Nico Cantor. So Nico, I'm going to dive straight into this because Xabi Alonso is sitting on the hot seat of one of the best jobs in world football as Real Madrid head coach. But is his time running out?
Yeah, for Xabi Alonso, you could argue it is the best job in world football, right? Time is running out. The media is putting a lot of pressure on him. But let's look at the numbers and see where exactly Xabi Alonso is. La Liga table is pretty damning. The distance between Real Madrid and Barcelona, it's been Real Madrid up, Barcelona up. Right now, it's a 4-point spread. Villarreal, right now, you see them 4 points back. That's because they have 2 games in hand. So the odds say Barcelona has a 60% chance to win La Liga. Real Madrid is at 39. What does that leave, like 0.5% for Villarreal and Atletico Madrid? Listen, their form is not great. Let's take a look at their last 9 games. And the form is really what's putting Real Madrid under pressure, especially Xabi Alonso, because results are everything in this business, especially at a club the size of Real Madrid. It's just that one win against Olympiacos, which was a very difficult win on the road in Athens, and then against Athletic Club. This is arguably one of their better performances of the season.
100%.
But it's surrounded by a lot of red and a lot of gray. They just got back to winning ways this weekend, but it wasn't that convincing.
I think the question marks around the Celta Vigo performance was one, because now people start talking about the intensity. Are they buying into the system? Are the players even working for him? A couple of these away results, I think, has raised the eyebrow naturally over it, and you saw the out of form coming out of it. But Liverpool, of course, because of the insecurity they've had this year overall in terms of, and Manchester City is a completely different animal.
You can lose
overall.
Away at Anfield.
Of course you can.
You can't lose at home to Celta Vigo.
Doesn't work that way. And that's the problem. Now when you start to explore in terms of diving into the deeper reasons as to why Real Madrid are in these sort of problems overall, I think it starts to create the question mark around the recruitment, around the system, around Xabi Alonso overall. Is his messaging getting across in terms of to that team? But I want to know, just focusing on what he's delivered so far, do you think the scrutiny is fair?
Yeah, I do think the scrutiny is fair, because when you show up to Real Madrid, you need to evolve. You need to adapt. And he was managing a certain way at Bayer Leverkusen. And at Real Madrid, it's a different type of coaching. I mean, it's this whole debate about coaching and managing, right? It is a little bit different. And you see against Alaves, where finally, after the Manchester City game, you saw a team that was responding a little bit to what Xabi Alonso wanted. And then against Alaves, you got the result, but I wouldn't say that the performance was from start to finish convincing in the way that Xabi Alonso would have wanted. And there still is an air of doubt. Split possession. In fact, almost Alaves just edging them out. The XG, Alaves put you under pressure. Shots on target, sure, but the big chances were more in favor of Alaves. So again, questions still, because there is a long run into the rest of the season, especially I have an eyes on the Super Cup coming up in January.
Always big games when you circle those in the calendar, but I can hear the fans at home immediately. What are you questioning? How have we gone from that invincible team of Bayer Leverkusen to where we are right now with this struggling Real Madrid system? And it's a completely different animal. You need to understand, when you sit on the hot seat for Real Madrid overall, you're under a different level of pressure, a different level of scrutiny, and what you can't allow is ball possession at any point to be dominated by a team like, and this is all respect to Deportivo Alaves, but they're not a Barcelona, a Man City, a Liverpool overall. So when you dive into the numbers, the wins, the losses, and we can see in terms of their form guide overall, you can really recognise the pressure that Xabi Alonso is under right now, because the wins are one thing. You're always going to be expected goals. You're always going to get wins as a Real Madrid manager. The quality that runs throughout your squad really does highlight as to why you are one of the best teams in world football. But it's the draws and the losses. And I want to bring everybody down to immediately the last graphic, because the big chances allowed is where we are really highlighting the big problem for Real Madrid. When they're under the cosh, when they're in games that are a little bit tighter, or they're not in as much control, all of a sudden it seems to unravel in terms of on the sidelines.
Yeah, I think the big chances allowed is the biggest one, like you say, JD, because when Real Madrid are winning, they're creating, it feels like they're on the ball, they're scoring first a lot of the time, but when they're not getting all 3 points, it feels like they're scrambling to figure it out. Sometimes it's salvageable, sometimes it's not. And this Madrid that's been lacking defensively, that hasn't had that type of order, especially because they're lacking personnel recently rather than throughout the entire season, it's shown that they're beatable, that they're vulnerable. And that's what's more worrying about Real Madrid rather than the guys up top coming together and fitting. It feels like a guy like Xabi Alonso, that he's going to be able to figure out.
Yeah, I think when you really break it down and you especially look at these big chances, we're always expecting Real Madrid to be on the front foot. You always expect them to create shots. I think it's the opposite angle. When we start really looking at, as you said, the personnel, I automatically think of the gaps now that's left between Kroos and Modric in that midfield. Where's the replacement? Where's the charisma?
Right.
Where's the determination? Where's your leaders that's going to help this guy on the sideline? Because I know we give him a lot of praise. I know he's a big fan. You're a big fan of his overall. But he still needs leaders because he's technically a little bit of an inexperienced manager still. This is a job that is for someone who's probably a little bit 10, 15 years ahead. But because of how good he is, he's good enough to be there. Or is he? I'm going to ask you the question now. Do you still think in terms of his tenure should be longer at Real Madrid?
Yeah, I think we have to wait and see, right? I don't know how willing the board at Real Madrid is willing to wait and see. Let's compare to the start that Ancelotti had. The numbers are pretty similar. I mean, granted, Ancelotti was tasked to find a lot of solutions to the question that you were posing. What does Real Madrid look like beyond Toni Kroos? What does Real Madrid look like now beyond Luka Modric that they don't have anymore, right? They did have Luka Modric in the start of the 24-25 season. But the numbers are almost the same. I mean, in fact, he's doing better than Ancelotti was doing in Champions League. They're creating similar amount of big chances. They're creating more shots on goal per game. It's a little bit more actually, but overall, what I'm saying is that the numbers are almost the same. Ancelotti obviously has much more credibility than Xabi Alonso, but I wonder if you grab it by a player perspective, right? Because that's the whole thing. Carlo Ancelotti, was a great manager of the dressing room.
Yeah.
Understood his players at his best. And there's a lot of questions about whether Xabi Alonso has lost the dressing room or not.
I love that question because I think that's really where we are right now in terms of opening up the discussion. And this is where we want you involved in the comments. Has Xabi Alonso still got control of that dressing room? Which I think is the hardest dressing room in world football to manage because you're not dealing with your typical high-profile players or players of a high quality. Every single player in that changing room believes that they should be starting. They understand the weight of the shirt in terms of wearing it and playing for Real Madrid. And more importantly, they're arguably the best player for their country. They're arguably the best player in their region.
Right.
Everybody has made a big deal of the fact that they actually represent Los Blancos and they're here now. And when you see them in terms of they're on top, you understand. That's when the fluidity comes out. That's when the confidence comes out. It's the other aspect. It's when they concede first, when they start to question the leadership and then the characters and then the tenacity and whether or not you can connect with your manager.
This is the one that's telling for me because they concede first, which is a possibility, and then you don't know what you're going to get. They could draw, they could lose, they could turn the result around. So what does Xabi Alonso do to get the most out of these players? Or what is he not doing enough to show that grit, that personality, that perseverance? It's obviously very early in the season. These numbers can change. And hopefully for Xabi Alonso and Real Madrid, they're not conceding first a lot, right? But in a Champions League game, when it does go up and down, I mean, we're talking about remontada, which has been like the title of Real Madrid in the Champions League as of late. Remontada happens because you're conceding first. And remontada can't happen if this is a complete unknown. A remontada has to happen because you concede first and there's belief you can turn it around. So what does Xabi do tactically? What decisions is he making from the sideline that's going to impact the game and specifically with a couple of players to get the most out of them?
Let's never question in terms of why Xabi Alonso got this job, because regardless of what people say around the current tenure and the inconsistency in terms of their form, this is still a top-level manager who has produced some incredible feats across Europe already. So what we need to do is dive into and give the responsibility back to the players that wear that shirt week in, week out. And that's the form of terms of the players that are playing for Real Madrid. So when you bring on someone like Fede Valverde, and the only reason why we bring him up, first of all, is because he leads by example. He's always been a consistent factor, whatever position he plays in. But as you can see, see from not only the heat map, but also in terms of his stats overall from last season to this season, there's a drop-off. Now, this is a high-level drop-off because there was question marks about whether or not this was the best player in a position last year in world football. But the important factor we need to is that Xabi Alonso needs him now. He needs his dedication, he needs his leadership at this moment because this dressing room doesn't seem as connected as it should be. And when you wear the captain's armband like he does on a consistent basis, he has a higher level of responsibility.
To me, Fede Valverde has been Real Madrid's more critical player over the last couple of years. And he's lost him. This is the first season that I'm really questioning, wow, Fede Valverde has really dropped off. That was never an issue from the last, I'm talking about a handful of years, right? You always knew Fede Valverde was going to give you a certain amount of output, and he's not giving it to you. Not only that, he's playing in a position that he didn't like. Granted, last year he did play right back, but the ways that he's able to impact the game are further up the field in an attacking portion of the field, perhaps out wide, but higher up, where he can hit a ball from mid-distance, where he can whip it across, where he can arrive late in a late run coming in, and he's not being able to do that this season.
I want to switch to my UK brother right now because Jude Bellingham has also, I think, done something that not many people in terms of from a British perspective has ever done. Shout out to Laurie Cunningham. But overall, when you see the perspective of where he is from last year to this year, again, it's another question mark. Everything is in an element of decline. And then we start to ask the questions. This is the connectivity to the manager. Am I giving the dedication? Because the duels contested is nothing we've ever questioned from Birmingham City all the way through to Borussia Dortmund to now Real Madrid. In terms of the penalty area entries, again, they're on the decline. The Sofascore isn't too bad overall in terms of, but the standard that Jude has set for himself, do you think that the Real Madrid number 5 is producing what he needs to right now with his team on a decline?
Yeah, my question is, I think a lot of these numbers are impacted by the presence of Mbappe. If you look at Vinicius' numbers, his numbers are also declining when you compare to last season to this season, especially because Mbappe got off to a slow start. This year, it's been lights out. He's one of the best players in the world. So Jude Bellingham has also been injured a little bit, so the sample size isn't as large. And obviously, he's still trying to be the guy that he was in the very first season when he arrived at Real Madrid and he won the Champions League. And he was scoring a lot of the goals, and creating a lot of the assists. And people were wondering, is this sustainable over a longer period of time? And over a longer period of time, it shows that he can be the creative mastermind and the assist or the provider to a mega superstar, right? And when I say mega superstar, it's because Kylian Mbappe is putting up numbers that are absolutely ridiculous. But I guess your numbers still need to follow because it can't just be Mbappe dependent. Is that a recipe for success?
Another question mark, another wonder kid that me and you have spoken about and given his flowers to, Arda Güler. Because, when we talk about Turkish wonder kid, I always put him and I put Yildiz in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be in terms of incredible forces across Europe. Now, I know on this show, we spoke about him in terms of the way that he started this season, the fluidity he had, the creativity, the spark, how he was coming from the inside. He seemed to be that one player that was connecting the midfield and the attack really well and complementing Kylian Mbappe. That was the first 14 games. Now we go into the next 9 games. Again, Nico, the struggles are starting to show.
And this one's more apparent, right? He's been losing his place in the midfield of Real Madrid. It felt like Arda Güler at the beginning of the season was the project for Xabi Alonso, the guy that was going to pull the strings, the guy that was going to kind of fill that that Toni Kroos size hole or Luka Modric size hole, whatever you want, the guy who's your metronome. And then he had a mistake against Atletico Madrid, and then he hasn't able to show up and be that definitive. He started to strike a good partnership with Mbappe, but it has kind of dimmed out a little bit. So with Jude Bellingham coming back into the mix, because remember those first 14 games was a lot of them, if not almost the most of them, were without Jude Bellingham, right? So I wonder if Arda Güler is ready for it. In this time of turmoil, if he's able to shoulder that responsibility. So I'm not convinced that this is Arda Güler. I'm more convinced that is Arda Güler. But we still need more time, especially if there's no manager change. Hopefully we could see Arda Güler start to get a little bit more of that numbers and a little bit more of that production value that we saw at the beginning of the season.
The reason why we highlighted those is, of course, they're midfielders. That's number one. But remember what we said at the top of this, right? You're talking about the management of arguably the best players for their nations and now having to come and fit in to be a squad player around other Galacticos or superstars, as they say. That's the fine balance in terms of Real Madrid. So I'm going to ask you, finally, before we head off, has Xabi Alonso lost his change room and can he turn this around?
No, but it's a delicate situation situation, he can turn it around. But it's a matter of 1 or 2 more results not going your way. And for me, I think there's a junction point at the Super Cup, potentially a final against Barcelona. You lose that game and you're not convincing, forget about it.
I always say you can turn around and focus on the creativity, you can focus on the work rate, but the industry doesn't lie. And Xabi Alonso's got a lot of work to do, but you get involved in the comments. Let us know. Is Real Madrid going to turn this around, or the struggle's going to continue? And most importantly, numbers don't lie.
It's Numbers Don't Lie, powered by Sofascore here on CBS Sports. Golazo, JayDee Dyer Nico Cantor, ready to ask the question, is Nico Paz Europe's best number 10? Stop.
Come on.
Stop.
Come on. I can hear the typers already. I can hear them in the comments. Did Nico just say that? Did Nico just open that question mark up?
How about this?
Okay.
He's the most dominant 10 in Europe for his team.
Graphics department's not going to be happy with that.
Yeah, but it's okay. But, I mean, you got to sell it somehow. But I do think he's one of the most dominant 10s for his team, if not the most dominant 10 in a setup, because he is Mr. Como at the moment. I mean, we look at the top 10, 5-rated players in Serie A when you consider their Sofascore rating. He's performing at that level. And look at his age, bro. He is mature beyond his years for a 21-year-old player. It's almost like Real Madrid saw something in him and said, he needs to go mature elsewhere. He's not ready for Madrid yet. Let him run the show somewhere so he understands the responsibility, and then we'll bring him back, which feels like inevitably what's going to happen at the end of the season.
But they have a history of this. Yeah, Casemiro was one that they sent out and then brought back, and then all of a sudden you become a club legend. Am I saying that about Nico Paz? There's a lot of work to be done, especially to be a legend at Real Madrid. But what I've seen on that, especially at Como, has been nothing short of sensational. I will start by saying he has one of the best minds in terms of on the touchline to help him develop, because I can see the similarities in terms of their games. The goals and the assists, the goal involvements, and the Sofascore ratings is credit to the work that he's put in. But also I think that Cesc Fabregas seems to be unlocking a level of elegance and directness in regards to this player, because we've always known he's had the passing range and the ability to unlock any team.
Yeah.
But it's the other things that he's doing now in terms of to help his team win games that I think has put him into a different conversation.
His positioning also, he can drop deep, he can thread balls through, he can be impactful in his own half, he can be impactful in the attacking half, he can be impactful inside of the box, outside of the box, he can hit a free kick or two. He's a different type of player. He's got an air of Dybala in him when Dybala was starting out, and you say, whoa, this kid has some serious future. Just like the thing is that Dybala hit his ceiling, and you're just hoping Nico Paz has a higher ceiling than that for the future of Argentina. I mean, duels won, tackles won. We're talking about defensive attributes here.
Facts.
It's not just offensive attributes.
And that's the part I love about his game. He affects it on both sides of the pitch. He does want to do the dirty work. He wants to push. He wants to engage. He's usually the person that starts the press for his team. But then once he gets the ball, he knows exactly what to do with it. And that's the composure, the elegance, and the technique that you can't just teach anybody. Shock, his dad, of course, went to a World Cup. And now, obviously, we're having a conversation about a player that probably could be putting himself into the upper echelons of an Argentinian sort of thought process for the World Cup squad because of his performances on a consistent basis.
I mean, if I'm Scaloni, I take him.
Have to.
He's that type of player, especially for some reason. You got to think, if you don't have Messi, you can put in a Nico Paz and he can give you something similar. I mean, look at the attacking midfielders in the top 5 leagues compared to everybody in the world. Goals and assists per game, it's his output, right? In the successful dribbles per game. There's only one person that's better in both categories than him, and it feels like it's Michael Elise, but he's in the top tier, like you mentioned, of players that are willing to take people on, that excite you, and not only that, they deliver.
Can I be an antagonist for a second? Because I know my boy Nico to Nico, they're going to support each other, both Argentine. They're going to support each other. Well, Argentine by passport, right? We'll say that. But what I would say is,
Argentine by passport, not even passport, but it's, I think we have the same Argentine background, by the way.
You hear that?
Yeah,
I knew that was going to come up and trigger somebody. But what I would say is, when I look at him in this conversation, I don't know if he's in this conversation. You're talking about the best 10s in world football. I know what the numbers will say in terms of about Cole Palmer and Bruno and Michael Elise and, of course, Jamal Musiala, who's not there on that list. But overall, is Nico Paz entering that echelon? Is he entering that? Or has he got a system right now that is catered around him with a manager who knows how to unlock unlock him? Would he be able to do exactly the same thing if he went back to his parent club and represented for Real Madrid?
I mean, that's the big question, right? Let's take a look very quickly and then we move on. These duels won and these tackles won per game, like this, look how much he stands out. It's a system, yes, that allows him to stand out on both sides of the ball. He's influential. He's playing for Como, right? It's not the same thing as playing for Real Madrid. Heck, it's not the same thing as playing for Juventus, not the same thing as playing for Milan, some of your better teams even in Serie A. But let's take a look and have this debate about what would it look like if he was to join Real Madrid, because it's not what if, it's when he joins Real Madrid, how he's going to fit into this squad, and can he have the same type of impact with the star-started 11 that Real Madrid has? I mean, essentially, we're swapping him in here for Arda Güler, right? And it's not even that. There's another creative left-footed Argentine midfielder at Real Madrid in Franco Mastantuono already. What are you feeling, JD?
I'm just going to open up the question mark. I'm going to look you directly down the camera and say to you, I don't see this being Real Madrid's starting 11 next year. I don't see them pushing out Arda Güler because of the confidence that he started with. And obviously, Xabi Alonso's had a whole season to work with him. Yeah. Also, my question marks immediately will go, where's your width in this team? Trent's not going to be your up and down. He dictates the game from a completely different angle. The same on the opposite side. I mean, he's a little bit more direct overall, but like when you think about this team, where's your width? Where's your creativity? Where's your actual balance in terms of overall as a team coming from? You're basically saying, I'm going to build around Nico Paz, and I'm asking you now, does that solve all of Real Madrid's problems?
I think
yes or no?
In theory, right? Just looking at it on paper, we're playing FIFA at this point, right? You're with, you do get it in Valverde. You got two good fullbacks that get high. Bellingham. How about this? We were talking already on this show about Bellingham being influential in these areas of the field.
100%.
What if, in theory, looks like more of a 4-2-2, you slot Nico Paz, because we mentioned how deep he can get and how influential on the ball is, and that's what Real Madrid has been desperately missing. That guy that can pick up the ball, that can be that first option out of the back and start constructing, be that metronome. So maybe if you slot him in next to Tchouaméni and Bellingham further up the field, where Bellingham can be the most impactful where he is most impactful, which is closer to the strikers, perhaps you got an answer to that. But the thing is that Xabi Alonso tried making Arda Güler that type of player, and it hasn't worked out to the best yet.
In terms of the consistency, but I think you're onto something. I think moving Bellingham forward and making it a 2-2, it takes me back to the original Real Madrid that I grew up on, when you had Zidane and Figo that were interchanging and both knowing that they could both come inside, they could both play off a different position, but when it came down to defensive, they went straight back into a 4 and everyone found their positions again.
Bellingham does that already,
he
right?
Does.
And why do you think he drifts so much left? Because in that 4-4-2, that sometimes in defensive phase, Bellingham is out wide, and there he has a quicker partnership with, it's either Mbappe floating, Vinicius floating, but now you got a question. All right, if Arda Güler has kind of been able to do it, it's an extremely similar profile of player that you're trying to swap out. Is it going to work?
That's the question mark, because I now ask you, as much as these stats are going to favour Nico Paz, and he can have the smile he wants in terms of on the graphic, all he wants, but in a Real Madrid team, you're not going to get the most amount of dribbles. Kylian Mbappe, Jude Bellingham, Vinicius, they're not going to sit here and be like, yeah, okay, Vinny's going to be like, yeah, go and take as many dribbles as you want. Yeah. Vinny is going to look at him and be like, pass me the ball right now. And this is where it comes back to Xabi Alonso having to manage those egos once again, because he knows his role in this team is going to be completely different. This is where I do think he can add extreme value, though, because you talk about Jude, and what we've given Jude credit for is his ability to go up and down, his dynamic behaviour in terms of on the pitch, and the duels won and the balls recovered because of the work rate in the industry. Having two players in that position that are willing to do that now adds a completely different aspect. And that's where Arda Güler, I'm not saying he's bad, but clearly Nico Paz is a completely different animal when it comes to that.
The one thing that I would say is that you can't lose the ball when you grab that and translate it into Real Madrid. And Nico Paz, just because the game flows through him a lot, he's allowed to make those mistakes because Cesc Fabregas has empowered him. It's like, go, search, take those risks. He's the person that loses the ball the most for Como. So it's how are you efficient being on the ball, showing that quality in moments, finding the outlets, not losing the ball. We've seen Arda lose the ball, and we've seen that lead to a mistake that ends up in a goal for the other team. because Toni Kroos would never lose the ball. But Toni Kroos is not these types of players, and Real Madrid is still begging for that type of control that players like Luka Modric, that Toni Kroos gave Real Madrid, that they were able to impose themselves, keep the ball, and then switch play, decompress, and have that authority keeping tempo, and there's no tempo setters.
What I will say about Nico Paz is we're always going to give you flowers on this show. And what he's done in terms of his performances this year has put him into the minds of fellow Argentines as to whether or not he should be included in incredible performance for the 26 World Cup, right? And when I start comparing them to the other, I would say younger players that are coming through that are trying to establish, let's say, the post-Messi era.
Yeah.
Nico Paz is entering a different type of conversation as to whether or not he can lead his country now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Argentina is starting to understand what it's like to have dual nationals in Nico Paz. But it's not only Nico Paz. You saw in that graphic Matias Soulé. You also saw Franco Masantuono. These are the future stars of the Argentine national team. Argentinian offensive player in the top 5 leagues. You add goals and assists per game on the x-axis, and then you add performance on the y-axis. Nico Paz is doing so incredibly well, along with Julian and Lautaro Martinez. These are obviously 2 incredible players. The question is this guy going to fulfill the hype? How will he be on an Argentina team beyond Messi? Because Argentina needs to, because they'll have to at one point.
You've got to move on
Beyond Messi. And what does Argentina post Messi look like? And there's this young group of guys, like I mentioned, the Franco Masantuonos of the world, the Nico Pazes of the world, that want to really grab the bull by the horns and show the quality that they have. And if there's going to be a creator, it feels like it's going to be between one of these 2 guys, because I think they are that good.
Look, the numbers have supported Nico today. Yeah, both Nico, my brother here, and of course Nico Paz on the graphic. But what I would say is maybe we should scratch this off and say not just Europe's now entering a conversation about the world's best number 10, because clearly there's an identification. He hasn't quite convinced me yet, but I know the Argentinian community is going to say something completely different. Yeah, we let them go in the comments?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. You guys tell us, is Nico Paz Europe's best 10, most dominant 10? Tell me what you guys think about this guy.
The best performances of the week need to be highlighted here on Numbers Don't Lie, because it's our favourite time of the week. I love this. Yeah, we've remixed the WTF stats of the week, and we decided to bring it in with something a little bit special, just giving a spotlight to some of the players that have performed incredibly well. Nico, this is across the world's leagues. Just tell me in terms of who stood out for you and some of these incredible performances.
I mean, Davide Bartesaghi playing as left wing back for Milan, first 2 goals of his career. They came against Sassuolo. Oscar Glock and Ajax resurfacing. They weren't doing so well, and then they beat Karabakh at the weekend. Ajax then beat Feyenoord again. CDK. I mean, these are pretty important performances on top of just like standalone performances. I think for their clubs they meant a lot.
100%. I want to give credit to Harry Wilson. I thought Harry Wilson's goal, the interchange around the box, baller with the outside of the foot. He's been a player that's been able to do it in terms of technically for a long period of time. It was always that consistency in terms of the games, and I feel like Marco Silva seems to be unlocking something in him, because the turn of this month has been sensational for his performances. And throughout, I just think when you look at this, I don't know many weeks that we've seen 2 10s in terms of Sofascore ratings.
Yeah, pretty incredible. I mean, CDK, he had a phenomenal European season last year, and he's been struggling to get going in the Champions League, and finally against Chelsea he showed up. He was good, like the CDK that we learned to love in Serie A. He just absolutely balled. I mean, the goal, the assist, but the key passes, right? He was in important moments, he showed up enough for a 10 Sofascore rating. Pretty incredible.
You know, what I loved about his game more than anything is just the grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck is a phrase that we use all the time, and being able to actually say, you know what, I can put the team and the responsibility on my shoulders and showcase that we're better than what we're showing. And I thought he was the heartbeat of everything that they did well, especially when they were pushing on. They wanted to really dominate and put Chelsea onto the back foot, even though let's bear in mind that they obviously went behind as well. They, I think, just revolutionized this whole game, and CDK, hands down, showcase what he can do at the hiest level against quality players.
He is the heartbeat of Atalanta. It feels like there's no stopping them. But what about Harry Wilson?
Oh, you know I like Harry Wilson. I've always said about him, especially left footers, they do things that are a little bit different. But I love the way his brain works. Because if you watch Harry, he's slight, he's not very quick. But what he does is he thinks the game. And those are the world-class players that think the game well ahead. He's really been sensational. The link-up that he had with Iwobi in that midfield, I thought changed the direction of this game overall. And an important win. Because if you've watched Fulham, it's inconsistency, and Marco
Yeah.
Silva starts to have a few question marks around him overall. But this heat map's not given enough credit because he really does dictate a lot in the middle too.
If we went heat map, guess the Sofascore rating.
It would have ended up like this.
Yeah. It's incredible how impactful you can be when your heat map is not that strong. All right. We've been talking about players, but now this is the part of the show where we don't know what's coming up next. A little bit of trivia. It's guess the player, then guess the team. But let's talk about individual statistics first, and let's see if we can find the guy. Here it is. Guess the player.
Okay.
Number one, he's a right winger playing in the Premier League with these stats: 15 games, 3 goals, and he's got a little bit of a goatee.
He's got a little bit of a goatee. It looks like a low fade as well. 15 games, 3 goals. Oh, nothing strikes to me. What's the next clue? I need the next clue. I need something else. Right winger. That's noted.
On this side, he's won 4 penalties for his team this season. No more than any other EPL. For me, it's Elanga. Could it be Elanga?
Could be.
He
But I don't
joined
think
his teammates. No. Yeah, Elanga, no?
Yeah.
He
Wait.
joined his
I
team
don't
this summer
know if
for a
that's
club record fee of 50 million.
No, because then Voltemada.
No, but that's not Voltemada, bro.
No, I know it's not Voltemada, but I'm saying he shares his name with a beloved Japanese sweet. Oh, this is good. Let me tell you why this is good, because me and Nico actually do really well with these. And this one, I don't feel, and it's in a league that we should know.
Okay, I'm stumped at
3
Japanese
goals.
sweet.
3 goals is definitely not Elanga. I'm telling you now, that's not Elanga. But I feel like Japanese sweet has thrown me off.
Hudson-Odoi, maybe? No, why am I thinking Nottingham Forest, though? 15 games, only 3 goals, winger.
On 4 penalties.
Oh, he's won 4 penalties for his team. No other player in the EPL has won more than one. He's been fouled inside of the box
4 times.
Noni Madueke. I'm trying to think of something that sounds like
Nah. Look, let's give it. Let's reveal it. For the first time, I'm going to concede. Let's see what happens. Ooh.
Dango Ouattara.
Yeah.
Which one's the beloved Japanese sweet? Forgive me. I would imagine Dango.
No, I think it's Ouattara. It's Ouattara.
We don't even know. I'm sorry that my Japanese sweets knowledge isn't at that level.
All right, look, we have to redeem ourselves, right? In terms of the player was obviously really good. Shout out to Dango, but I want to see if we can guess the team. That's the guess the team this week. So let's remix it. Let's switch the graphic up. Ooh, okay. Teams unbeaten away, top 5 leagues, league games only.
Okay. Bayern is the Bundesliga team.
Facts.
Right, and they lost one. No, they only lost against Arsenal. Yeah, it's got to be Bayern, right?
Yep.
Unbeaten away.
League games only. Oh, this is good.
Barca's lost away. I feel like Betis hasn't lost away.
Okay, it's a good shout. We'll hold Betis in this one.
Do we not get clues? Do we just need to give you guys the 3 teams?
No clues? Producer's telling us no clues in our ear?
I'm going...
Talk about throwing us in the deep end, bro.
Okay, Bayern, Betis, because Barca and Madrid have lost. Atletico's disaster away. And then my Serie A team that has not lost
away from home.
I feel like they're in Europe.
Bologna?
That's a good one.
Bologna? Should we go with Bologna?
That's a good one. The answer?
Please?
Hey!
No! Oh, AC Milan! Of course! I actually knew this as well. I heard that stat the other day. Oh, that's gutted. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You know why? Because men lie, women lie, but numbers don't. Yeah, and this has been another week from Nico and JayDee. You know what time it is. We'll see you in the next one.
Hey, thanks for watching this video from Numbers Don't Lie. Be sure to catch our show every Monday at 5 p.m. on YouTube. And for news and insights from leagues all around the world, including Serie A, EFL, and all UEFA competitions, both men's and women's, don't forget to sign up for Paramount+.